This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and we're doing another hotel highlight. It seems you guys really like these, so I thought, why not do another one? So here it is. So this week, we're going to be doing the New York Hotel and Casino, which is located on the south end of the Strip. This is actually becoming one of my more favorite sort of nostalgic hotels from, the 90s. And it's actually a really nice place to come, especially if it's your first time to Vegas, or if you want a place with a nice, good centralized location. I think New York is actually really great. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into that episode. We're going to talk about the restaurants, the hotel itself, its proximity to the Strip, obviously, and a couple of my favorite little sort of notes about this property. So today we're doing a hotel highlight of the New York Hotel and Casino. Okay, everybody, so let's go ahead and dive into the New York Hotel and Casino, located on the south end of the Strip on Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard. Coincidentally, this corner used to be one of the corners in, one of the largest populated hotel corners, more hotel rooms on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana than the entire city of San Francisco. That was always one of my favorites, close to 10,000 rooms. So obviously that number is not correct anymore just because the Tropicana is no longer there, so we can no longer add that into the equation. But the New York opened in the late 90s, and this property itself is actually one of the smallest hotels that's owned by MGM Resorts. It actually has 2,995 rooms, or somewhere there, right under 3,000 rooms. And a lot of the rooms are actually in unique parts of the building. Essentially, when you look at the building itself, it has the skyline of classic New York City. Has the Empire Tower, has the Chrysler Tower, and I think it has another thing called the Empire Tower. So a lot of different entrances for this particular property, so you have to be very, skilled in terms of finding your room. But other than that, it's actually quite a small property in terms of how they lay it out, but it's actually one of the more approachable properties when it comes to staying here, eating here, and even gambling here. I actually would rank this as one of my top hotels to go to if you're looking for affordable places to play. And in terms of the people that go to this property, I think are very even-keeled. I think they're very much the very middle of the middle when you think of Las Vegas. Low end, high end, they're very much right in the center. This property is actually one of the more popular properties when it comes to event time, just because they are right next to T-Mobile Arena, which is obviously where we have all of our concerts. It's also where we have all the Golden Knights games, March Madness. It becomes a very, very busy place for, it used to be the Pac-12. We don't know if the Big Ten will be coming here, but I'm sure they will be coming very, very soon. But it's a very popular place for events. And it's also one really holds one of the best, gathering points for these big events in the Centrifuge Bar. Just like many other properties, it is centered around a center bar, which would be called the Centrifuge. It's actually not called the Centrifuge. I think it's actually called the center bar or the circle bar. Let's actually just look it up. Stop guessing on it, I suppose. So it's just funny that you go to their nightlife and it takes you to another page. So this bar is called the Center Bar. Look at us. It was not too difficult to guess that. But anyways, this property itself is actually quite well maintained for a hotel being from the 90s. When you think of 90s style hotels, you're going to be thinking about places like, you don't think about the Bellagio, but the Bellagio was built in the 90s. But you're really thinking places like the Luxor, the Excalibur, the Mandalay Bay is actually quite luxurious. It was open in the late 90s. The MGM Grand was open in 1993. But really, the New York was built at really the tail end of sort of that themed hotel era of the 90s. And really, it's really fantastic on the inside. It's very well kept. Lots of different dining options in terms of casual dining options, and not just in a food hall. Everything here really has sort of a focus on playing into that New York vibe or New York City vibe, which is actually what makes it very, very quaint. And actually a really nice little place to visit. I would say one of this place's really the big pluses for it is its affordability. You can usually find hotel rooms at the New York between $76 from a Tuesday to about $80 up until like Thursday. When you get to the weekends, so Friday through Sunday, you are looking at prices in the $200 range, $250. But if you go to their website, they have lots of promotions that you have to factor into the actual price of what you're getting. A lot of food and beverage. There's also lots of sales going on. So make sure when you click through the New York website, when you're purchasing, that you go through all of the different tabs, just because the price that's listed on the wonderful little calendar off to the left is not going to be, it has things that go into it if you're purchasing at that price. But if you are booking at the New York, you should definitely be getting something for your troubles, whether it's food and beverage credit or a sale. If you're just getting just the flat rate, then you're missing out on some stuff that you're leaving on the table. But a fun little fact about the New York is that it is actually one of the most profitable hotels for MGM Resorts. Reason being is that, one, its size, it's quite small, it doesn't take up lots of space. They do have conference rooms, but it's not actually, they don't have that much conference room space at the New York. So they don't really run off of conferences. They really focus on being a regular consumer, regular guest destination, which means you have a lot more affordable options in terms of restaurants, and that could be, fast casual, that could be casual dining, and they do have a couple, they have a couple of fine dining options, and really, the really only fine dining option here would be like Gallagher Steakhouse. Il Fornai I wouldn't put as fine dining, but it is actually quite a nice little restaurant out if you're looking for a place to eat at the New York. So other than like just being in a nice, affordable hotel, I keep wanting to call it a restaurant, but it being a nice, affordable hotel, the rooms themselves are actually quite unique depending on where you have them. And you actually tend to get a pretty good view because of how it's situated on the corner of something. You either get a view of T-Mobile Arena, which is really fun, especially on the weekends, because you can see all the people gathering outside before they go in for a show. You also can get a view of the wonderful hole that is the A's future stadium, or as we say, the corner of Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard, which is great because you can see the beautiful MGM Grand or the Excalibur on the other side, or you can have a north strip facing view, which looks north on Las Vegas Boulevard, which is where all the action is. So really not a bad place in terms of getting a view of something while you're out on in the hotel, but once you get out of the hotel rooms, which the hotel rooms very much are minimalistic in terms of properties, they tend to have hardwood floors, which is quite unique. Again, they may not be actual wood, but they are not carpet, which is actually very interesting when you kind of walk through it. Most places have carpet inside of their rooms. That's a very unique trait. But you would think that more wouldn't. Me and my mom talk about this all the time, that most hotels would think that having hardwood or, not carpeted rooms would actually be a benefit in terms of like knowing like the cleanliness and also cleaning. Obviously things spill onto carpets and you have to have them cleaned, and it's an extra step. So kind of an interesting thought and kind of going forward in terms of hotels. Just saying. But anyways, very minimalistic in terms of the hotel rooms themselves. They're very unique just because of how the room is laid out. It is very much a difficult way to find your room the first time you're going because there are lots of twists and turns because of how the hotel is actually built. But once you get down to the casino floor, most of the casino floor is operating in a circle around the center bar where you find many different variations of slot machines, which is quite nice. And then you also have a nice little wing of table games. The table games have actually been shrunken down from what they used to be. There was a lot more table games, but they've really been taken over by a lot of slot machines. But you do they used to have a really nice amount of craps tables. They used to have 1, 2, 3, 4. They used to have 5 craps tables, maybe just 4. But now they've actually whittled down to only 3 craps tables. So 2 main live ones and then 1 gigantic electric one that takes up so much space. I'm so pissed about it. And this used to be one of my favorite places to tell people to go to play $10 craps because it was available. No longer is it available anymore. So usually you can only get They still have some $10 craps tables. You do have to go at certain times, but they do have $10 blackjack tables, which is quite nice. They usually have 2 operating at a time up until about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, where we'll go up to $15, which is pretty much the norm for most mid-level properties. But once you're on the casino floor, you can feel like really good energy on the casino floor. I think it's because of how the bar is situated and how small the property is, where you're kind of seeing all the different pieces all together. So whether you're playing slots, table games, or you're at a different bar, you can sort of see what's going on further down the road where there's more stuff to be had. So the center bar actually does a really good job of that, of really being that center point for the entire casino. Other than center bar, they do also have Tom's Watch Bar, which used to be Tom's Urban, but it's been reframed as being a place to watch any games, specifically football games on Sundays, because the sportsbook here absolutely sucks. The one thing at New York that I really can strongly say is the worst in all of Las Vegas is their sportsbook. They have one of the worst sportsbooks in town. All the TVs are from like the mid-90s, and they're very small, and it was a good idea, like it's sort of like the tellers were like these like sort of inside these skyscraper things, but not great. I don't like the sportsbook. It's not very good. But what people typically will do, they'll go gamble or bet at the sportsbook, and then go to Tom's Watch Bar to actually watch the games, where it's actually just like a standard sports bar. Pretty large. It's really good. It's good for families if you wanted to take families, because they do have seating for kids, but it is a good space, and they have 2 main big bars, one that looks out to the strip, great for people watching, and one that's inside that actually gives you more viewing opportunities. So that is Tom's Watch Bar. Other than that, they have a huge amalgamation of places inside of like their make-believe Greenwich Village, which is actually quite fun because you can walk through it, and they still have the steam that comes out from the potholes, which when I was a kid was always like a really big deal for me, because I was like, oh, look, we're like in New York. And it's just so charming, and I really like it. So one of their big fast food sort of partnerships, which took over where the ESPN zone used to be, which has been sort of taken over by a couple different restaurants, is the Shake Shack. Shake Shack is very, very popular. Lots of New Yorkers, lots of East Coasters swear by it. It is the Shake Shack that is on the Strip, and currently In-N-Out is building another property to hopefully overtake Shake Shack on the south end of the Strip. But there is Shake Shack. We also have Nine Fine Irishmen, which has been quite popular, especially for soccer games early in the mornings, and whenever there's like a big World Cup game. That is a really popular place to go for any of the English or Irish fans who come into town. I know that's not always like a seamless relationship, but when they're over here, they sort of band together and will cheer for anybody who is not from the islands in the UK or Ireland. So, Nine Fine Irishmen, not bad. They do have live music, really popular during St. Patrick's Day, obviously, and it's one of the like 2 or 3 really popular Irish pubs on the Las Vegas Strip. You have Gonzalez y Gonzalez, which is great at nighttime if you want to go dancing. The food is okay. Don't always recommend it. And they have a bevy of stuff outside on the way to T-Mobile Arena that they've really built up as sort of like a main attraction for the outdoor portion of New York. So you have Top Round, which is roast beef sandwiches. Beer House is a really great like sort of secret spot if you're trying to watch football games, because many people don't think about it, but that's a really good place with many, many TVs. Really great if they have standalone games like Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football. They'll always have them here, and a pretty competent group of people really run that bar, which is really important in terms of bars that aren't specifically like the sports book. Then you have Nathan's, obviously, which is fast food next to the arcade. Il Fornaio, which I absolutely love Il Fornaio. It's really great for something casual or even sort of like a little bit done up version of dinner, obviously. We also have Fourth and Crepe, Hello Kitty Bar. Obviously, you can see there are so many different restaurants on the inside that I usually for this type of thing will just lump them all together as like a food hall, but they're not food halls. They're all very unique and individualistic when you go eat there. A couple of places I do want to sort of highlight is the Broadway Burger Bar, which is on your way to the Mad Apple Theater, which used to be the Zumanity Theater, and they make fantastic simple burgers and fries, really great for lunch, really great for a casual dinner if you want to go. And it has, again, if you sit outside, more of a feel of sort of like a New York when you're there, which is the whole fun part about staying at the New York is like you maybe couldn't afford to go to New York City, but we got it right here. And that's what we love about this wonderful city. And also they have it says the New York Food Hall, which is really just their pizza spot. Honestly, I just found out that it was called the Food Hall, but it's really just the pizza restaurant that they have there that you just go through. They make pizzas, calzones, salads, really good for pick up and go and really, really quick food. My dad also really loves the sandwiches from the sandwich stop right next to it. If you're a fan of like roast beef sandwiches, Carnegie Deli kind of sandwiches, that kind of thing. Another place that I think is sort of a mainstay of the New York is the American Cafe, which is called America, which is hilarious. And they are your go-to breakfast spot, one of the only long-lasting 24-hour cafes in Las Vegas. You have to cherish these things because they deliver great, consistent food and really there's no frills to it. It's a really fantastic cafe. This one was like really fancy back in my day that I had a big giant map of, America. So really, really enjoy the America Cafe. And obviously we have to highlight their fine dining restaurant, which is Gallagher's Steakhouse. Gallagher's to me used to be a really, really big deal. I don't really think Gallagher's is of the caliber of the steakhouses that are now in Las Vegas, but at its time it was a huge deal to have Gallagher's here. And like I always remember when my parents would come home from visiting Las Vegas, they took a picture and they framed it. It's funny, they framed it in front of a big giant window of meat. And that was at Gallagher's. And it's still there, which is actually great. But I always think it's a nostalgic thing that Gallagher's is still around after all these years. I didn't mention this earlier when I was talking about this is one of the smallest hotels on the Strip, is that Gallagher's, or most of the restaurants inside of the New York, are actually like they lease their space, which means that they have to pay New York a rent, which makes the New York one of the most profitable hotels on the Strip because they do not have to be responsible for any of the restaurants inside of its property. Most hotels in Las Vegas, less now than what they used to control the restaurants. So they used to have to figure out the food costs. That's why many hotels now don't give you as many comps to restaurants as they used to be. They still do give comps to restaurants and such in forms of like food and beverage or dining credit. But you might have remembered like back in the day, this would happen to like my dad. He was playing, he was at the sports book and he won a big giant amount of money. So then there was it might have been playing blackjack. I can't remember which one, but he was given a slip of paper that said, we can give you this or we can give you that. And he chose getting like a $250 comp at Gallagher's, which this was back in like the mid 2000s, which that would have been a really good comp. And he ended up going to Gallagher's as a comp, and it was just like on a receipt. Nowadays, it doesn't really happen that way. Most of the time, they just say, here's a food and beverage credit, charge it to your room, and we'll take care of it. And that's usually the way that it goes. So just one of those things that from a bygone era, as they would say. But overall, they don't really have like a lot of nightlife here. They do have some forms of it, I suppose. They don't have it like an official nightclub, but they do have Coyote Ugly, which honestly, when you walk into Coyote Ugly, you're going to figure out like, oh, I can be in there for like 25 minutes and I'm good. They have the girls who dance, obviously, on the big giant stage. It's a very normal bar. It's a very much like a bar like, hey, we're not doing anything for the next couple of minutes. Let's go hang out on the inside, have a drink, watch the performance. It could be really fun. If you're a girl, you get lots of free shots. At least that's what it used to be. A little bit of performance, so they have to pour it down your throat. So just, be careful. Other than Coyote Ugly, which usually doesn't have a cover charge, usually just have to be 21 and over, you're good to go. They have the bar at Times Square, which is also known as the Dueling Piano Bar. Really, really fun. It's a really fun time if you're trying to be communal, have a sort of a bit of I don't want to say cheap entertainment, but that's really what it is, and be sort of around a bunch of other people that are also kind of in the same mindset. You might be somebody who likes sort of Billy Joel or Elton John or the classics, Springsteen. They play a lot of high energy, fun music at the Times Square bar. It's really a performance, and it's a really fun time there. A couple other places, I mean, they have Get Your Girl Saturday Nights at Gonzalez y Gonzalez. Sick. Really great if you want something like margaritas and such. High Limit Bar is fine. But other than that, that's really what they have in terms of nightlife. If you do want more nightlife, I would say go to places like Park MGM, MGM Grand, where they actually have nightclubs and a couple more late night options. This should be noted that the pool at the New York is not great. I do not recommend coming here for the pool. The pool is very old school. Honestly, something you would find at like a Disneyland hotel, where it's maybe just a step above like a regular pool. But this pool is nothing to write home about. Don't recommend coming here for the pool. It's more of a place where you're coming to visit. Really good in the fall. Obviously, you can come in the summer because there's lots of activities to be done, but not the pool. I don't recommend it for the pool. They do have a show here. The show, which used to be called Zumanity, is now Mad Apple. Mad Apple's really fun. It's a really good introduction to the funny side of Cirque du Soleil. It's also a place where you're going to find lots of different techniques that are used inside of this show. It's nothing in particularly focused, whether it be, aero acrobats or water-based acrobatics like they have at O. Honestly, to me, I think it's better if you walk across the street and go over to Ka. Ka is a really good introduction to what Cirque du Soleil is on a massive scale because you include the actual stage itself. Most Cirque du Soleil is really focused on acrobatics, but again, the era of Cirque du Soleil has kind of gone by the wayside, but these places and these shows are still very popular, especially the larger scale ones. This one is all, guests under 18 are not admitted. Have to be 18 or over to watch this show, which is rare for Cirque du Soleil. There's really only, I believe this is the only one that has to be 18 or over. It used to be so great. Like, just on a tangent for a second, Zumanity was a fantastic Cirque show. I think it went away, just before the pandemic, maybe just after. And I loved it. I thought it was an amazing show. I've seen it like 5 or 6 times. It's very adult, very sexy, very Vegas. And Mad Apple, I think I just sort of tainted because the show I went to had lots of stoppages, and that really throws off the vibes of the show. So I do have kind of in the background just the website up, just for reference. And I almost went this entire time without mentioning the Big Apple roller coaster. How could we miss the marquee attraction at the New York, and that is the roller coaster. The roller coaster I've been on, I think, maybe 5 or 6 times over like my entire life living here, and it's really fun. I have to say, doing it, maybe the first couple of times, the first time in particular, especially at nighttime. If you do it, do the roller coaster at night, because that's why you're here. It's really fun as you sort of come out of the hotel, build up your speed to go up, and then come back down, and then you're right on the Las Vegas Strip doing loops, and it's a really fun time. It's a little rocky. It's an older roller coaster, but I was actually in a hospitality class, and we were talking about the hotels and profitability and such, and we were talking about the roller coaster, and the professor said that roller coaster has paid for itself at this point, and now it is all profit from that roller coaster. And every time it goes, it's cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And it's one of the reasons why the New York is one of the most profitable hotels on the Strip. It is, by the way, $25 to ride the roller coaster at New York. I think for $35, you can actually ride it all day as long as you want. It doesn't look like they have time. Well, they don't have like actual times, but they are open from 11 in the morning to midnight. So just keep that in mind. Honestly, it looks like every single day. So just make sure you head over to the New York. to ride the roller coaster. My mom actually really likes the slot machines here. So if you are a fan of slots, I do recommend this. It's also a really good place to stay if you are trying to go to other events like, T-Mobile we've mentioned, but also if you're trying to go to MGM Grand, if they have any events there, it is very close proximity. If you are trying to go to like a football game or an event at the Legion Stadium, from there you can just walk over the bridge that connects New York to Excalibur, and you don't even have to go inside of Excalibur. Once you cross the bridge, look to your left, and that's actually where the station is for the MGM tram that will take you from Excalibur all the way to Mandalay Bay, which is where you can get off and then walk to Allegiant Stadium, just like most people do. So honestly, you never actually have to get onto the strip itself. All you have to do is cross the bridge, cross over the bridge again, which is just to your left, and then that is the station that will take you to Mandalay Bay, which all of this is free, and from there you can walk inside with many signs to get to Allegiant Stadium. Which is great. Really great place to stay for all the, for budget. It's really good. Proximity to the strip is actually fantastic. And also like the offerings there is actually quite nice in terms of the dining options. What am I missing? Am I missing anything I would say this is not like high-end property by any means. It's not like the Wynn, it's not like Bellagio, but it's a great place to come. If it's your first time to Vegas, I think this is a phenomenal property. If you're a younger person who's coming for your first time, I think it's great because you get sort of that vibe. When I went there were lots of young people in their 20s, sort of just walking around, maybe going over to Hakkasan at that time of night. But there is a nice sort of like atmosphere on the inside. It doesn't feel tired. It feels energetic, and it doesn't feel too much like a budget hotel. I'm not going to lie, when I walked inside of La Flamingo, Harrah's, those properties feel very budget oriented. And they do feel dated. The New York does not feel dated whatsoever. It does feel like, yes, we know it's New York. We know it's kitschy. We know it's from a certain era. But I think everybody is in such a great mood. I think it's a fantastic place to stay. So this is a shorter one this week, but really one of my more favorite hotels is the New York. When I think of, affordability, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So thanks again, everybody, for listening to the podcast. I know there were 2 this week. I want to do the best 1-2 combination properties in terms of restaurants and entertainment that you can do in one night. So I really want to dive into that going forward. Maybe I'll do it based on budget. Who knows? So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. If you see me out in town, come up and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.